While Xiao Beihan's body was surrounded by the magical barrier, he extended the sword to one side and with an angry look asked Jang if he was really comparing the worthless power of that piece of trash with his. According to him, Jang was naive. Jang simply remained calm and silent for several seconds. At that moment, Little Nine reappeared. She began to stare at Xiao Beihan with a sinister look and started to smile. While Jang's body was surrounded by Little Nine's poisonous mist, with a calm look he asked him if he was really comparing the current him to the past him. Thinking this way was indeed naive, he began to get tired of him and ordered Little Nine to manifest and give him a beating. She extended her hands to the sides and while her body was releasing a powerful energy, she began to advance towards Xiao Beihan and decided to follow Jang's order. Xiao Beihan put the sword in front of his face to defend himself from the attack, and with a confused look he began to wonder who she was. Little Nine started moving at high speed and began attacking him. But he started blocking the attacks using the sword, no matter from which direction she attacked. He managed to block all the attacks. Upon seeing this, Jang was surprised. With a perplexed look he began to wonder if he was using the energy of the protective sword. He did not expect Xiao Beihan to have this kind of ability at a moment like this. Luckily for Xiao Beihan, the beast appeared. It gave a great leap, opened its mouth and prepared to attack Little Nine. She and he started looking to one side and upon seeing this they went on alert. Jang didn't take long to realize what was going to happen. He extended his hand towards her, causing his hand to start emitting the poisonous mist. He began staring intently at the beast and upon seeing that it had also awakened, he decided that now it was time to unleash all their power. He extended his hand towards the beast and summoned 2 dragons made of poisonous mist and gave them the order to corrode Xiao Beihan and cover Little Nine. He also summoned the small insects and told them that there was top quality fierce beast meat. The first to arrive would be the first to eat the beast. Upon hearing this, they appeared, started advancing towards them and prepared to attack. Now that the dragons and small insects had appeared, Little Nine began running towards him and started smiling. Xiao Beihan put both arms in front of his face and thought this was not good since the sword's energy had been corroded and now he could no longer cause damage. The beast turned around, opened its mouth and seeing that Little Nine was ready to attack, began to roar to warn Xiao Beihan about the attack. Little Nine approached him and now that he could no longer block the attacks, she began to hit the magic barrier with all her strength. Her fists started impacting against the barrier and it gradually began to weaken. Jang, who was nearby, started watching them and realized that Xiao Zhengguo favored some grandchildren over others, and for this reason it was much more difficult to defeat Xiao Beihan than Xiao Yuanwu. She began to hit even harder, and little by little the barrier started to crack. While her eyes were shining, she started staring at him. Xiao Beihan, who was inside the barrier, couldn't help but start sweating and panicking. Even though the barrier was strong, Little Nine was going to break it with blows. It was only a matter of time. If before she had needed 3 seconds, now she would need at most 3 minutes. At the same time in the surveillance room, Yuan Guang began to observe the fight. According to the screen, it could be seen that there was a blue magical barrier in the area which prevented people outside from seeing inside. Upon seeing this, he realized that Xiao Beihan was at a disadvantage now that Jang had blocked the surveillance. He gave Fang Chengyuan the order to conduct a manual investigation and if the situation was not good, to stop the combat immediately. He was Fang Chengyuan, the great master of the 4th level of the spatial system. He joined his fingertips together and with a serious look responded with an understood. Behind him sat Gu Kaishan, who had his legs crossed and his head resting on his hand. He remained somewhat confused as he couldn't believe that their superiors didn't want Zhang Guo's grandson to be injured or end up dead. Yuan Guang turned around, put his arms behind his back, and with a calm voice explained to him that although that was true, no one knew what would happen if he got injured or ended up dead. He didn't know if he was really prepared for a battle with Xiao Zhengguo. He also asked him if Commander Duan from the Jiangnan War District knew about this. Gu Kaishan started looking at him and remained silently thinking. Feeling his gaze, Yuan Guang couldn't help but panic. With a confused look, he told him that although he had ordered the prohibition of leaking any information within the Tanjiao camp, once it ended, the superiors would know what had really happened. Gu Kaishan, who had his head resting on his fist, began to look at the ceiling with a lost gaze and sank into his thoughts. He knew that Xiao Beihan's strength was also considered outstanding. He didn't know if Jiang Chen could really kill him and neither did he understand why he had created an anti-vision barrier. At the same time, Jiang's attack succeeded and he defeated the beast without much difficulty. While its body was surrounded by poisonous mist, it began to fall to the ground. Jiang, who was beside it, crossed his arms and thought that although this fierce beast was powerful, When facing the insects, it had really found its nemesis. Little Nine's attacks also started to take effect, and now Xiao Beihan's barrier had several cracks and was about to break. She walked away, clenched her fist tightly, and upon seeing this, couldn't help but start to smile. He grabbed the sword tightly and panicked at the thought that this was the end. He didn't know how it was possible that the life jade was starting to break. In the barrier there was a crack much larger and deeper than the others. Jang began to look at the barrier and with a calm voice asked Little Nine to attack from this part since this was the weak point. At that moment, the voice of someone entered his head and asked him not to play too much since the great master of the space system named Fang Chengyuan had arrived. Upon hearing this, Jang's expression changed drastically. He couldn't help but be shocked and panic at the same time. He reached out to Little Nine, began to absorb her and gave her the order to return. Little Nine, who had a clenched fist and was hitting the barrier, couldn't help but be somewhat confused as she didn't know what was happening. Now that an instructor who had a spatial system had sent a telepathic warning, he needed to finish this fight quickly or else he would be discovered. He summoned a giant insect, which began to approach the magic barrier and started to explode. Xiao Beihan, who was inside the barrier, started to look at the insect with a perplexed gaze and couldn't help but start sweating and panicking as he didn't know what this was. Just before he could realize what was really going to happen, it was already too late. The insect that Jang had summoned exploded, causing the energy to start entering inside the barrier. Because of this, a great explosion began to generate inside. The energy that was inside the barrier was so great that once it broke, it created a great explosion with the same force as a nuclear explosion. The explosion also broke the barrier that Luo Sandow had created. She put both hands on her belly and started falling to the ground. Lu Hankyu, who was next to her, started running towards her, reached out her hand to grab her, and she asked her if she was okay. The explosion also created a large curtain of smoke. Several seconds later, once the curtain of smoke began to disappear, it could be seen that part of the ground was broken. There were flags lying on the ground, and now all that remained of Xiao Beihan was his arm and his sword. Jang approached the area, took his sword, started looking at the arm, and seeing that only his arm remained, he began to question whether he had been rescued by the Great Master. Now that he had doubts, he decided to take the arm first as interest since he would have the opportunity to recover the capital later. He approached Luo Sandow, threw her the sword and asked her to take good care of the sword that belonged to her family. As little by little the sword was descending towards the ground, she raised her hands to catch it, and while she was starting to blush she thanked him. Mu Hankyu picked up the flags that were lying on the ground and Luo Sandow picked up the sword. Both approached Jang. She had collected 3 advancement flags, so she told him that they were already among the top 10. Jang decided to share the flags with them. But Mu Hankyu refused since she wanted to see him surpass Jiang Wushuang and win first place, and Luo Sandow also refused because for her having the sword was more than enough. At the same time, someone slammed the table hard. This person was Yuan Guang and next to him was Fang Chengyuan. He put both hands on the table and with an angry look asked him what he was doing and why he hadn't been able to teleport Xiao Beihan in time. At the beginning, he closed his eyes and stayed thinking in silence. Then he opened them and with a calm voice explained that the poisonous fog was too strong. His spiritual energy had barely approached it. He hadn't seen anything clearly and the energy was corroded by the poison. Then he heard an explosion. He had tried to teleport Xiao Beihan with all his strength, but it was already too late. Yuan Guang started pointing at him with his finger, began staring into his eyes intently, and asked how it was possible for the poison to corrode mental power. After saying this, he told him not to excuse himself from responsibility. At that moment, someone gave a loud shout and ordered Yuan Guang to shut up. Upon hearing that, he stood up, turned around and with a trembling voice tried to apologize. This person was Gu Kaishan. He started staring at Yuan Guang and with an angry look asked him if he knew why he always got stuck at the peak of the 5th transformation. He explained that the reason was because he always followed the powerful and could not pass the test of the heart. A moment ago, he had mentioned the great general of the sword, consequences, and so on, and for this reason he hadn't even bothered to respond. If Gu Kaishan dared to do it, he also dared to assume the consequences on the battlefield. Even those invincible in 9 transformations could die in combat, so Xiao Beihan was nobody. Yuan Guang took several steps back, got a little nervous and explained that he had not mentioned Xiao Zhenguo. He had only mentioned Commander Duan. Gu Kaishan turned his back to him, slightly turned his head back, clenched his fist and with a calm look gave him the order to first report inside the camp but keeping the information strictly confidential outside. Tomorrow at 6 before the evaluation and the camp ended, no one eliminated could be allowed to leave the camp, including Xiao Beihan. He turned his back on them, started walking towards the door and told them that first he was going to go to the Southern Theater Command. Yuan Guang and Fang Chengyuan started looking at him and remained silent. At the same time, a system window appeared in the sky and informed everyone that Xiao Beihan had been eliminated by Jiang Chen. Everyone started looking towards the sky, and upon seeing this, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded as they were unable to believe that Xiao Beihan had been eliminated. They were in shock and thought they had heard wrong since he was the legitimate grandson of the great general of the nation. In another part of the camp, a beast in the shape of a boar appeared. It tried to attack Tang Ying and Bai Feng, but they jumped and dodged the attack without much effort, causing its body to hit the ground. Tang Ying couldn't help but stay in shock. She couldn't believe that Zhang had really eliminated Xiao Beihan. Bai Feng remained calm, and with a serious look thought this was very strange. In another part of the camp, a beast in the shape of a white lion appeared, but someone gave it a strong blow, causing its body to hit the ground. The person who had defeated this beast was Wushwang. He sat on top of the corpse of it, crossed his arms and started to smile and thought that this was very interesting. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part, then don't forget to subscribe and like the video.